real benefit of working with someone like Keith and the Walnut Board is that they're representing two sides of the equation, right? They want to help. The primary constituent are the growers, right? And trying to figure out how to take this incredible product. And then you've got the brand coming in with no idea of what they want. And their real superpower is finding ways to mix it, because there might be innovation that the Walnut folks have come up with that they're not advertising yet, right? But I'm just giving them a problem to solve. And they're saying we can solve it with walnuts. I think that's really the value of working with the board.
Welcome to the Startup CPG podcast. Friends, I've heard about so many brands out there who have some kind of a trick up their sleeve, a mysterious benefactor, somebody helping them out with their supply chain and R&D, education, and a lot more. And it turned out to be a commodity board. There are a bunch of them out there. They're formed to support commercial activities for farmers who all grow a certain kind of product. And actually, these boards can provide a lot of resources for startup brands. So today, I wanted everyone to learn all about what one of the boards is doing for an incredible brand from our community. So we've got Kartik from Doosra. He just absolutely crushed Fancy Food Show with his new Indian snack mix. And we're also joined by Keith Size from the California Walnut Board, who has been the person behind the scenes helping Kartik to get his new snack mix to market. Thank you so much to the California Walnut Board for joining us. They would love to hear from anyone out there who is interested in their resources or education. You can email them at foodinnovation@walnuts.org, and that's in the show notes. All right, enjoy. All right. Welcome to the podcast, everybody. We are going to jump right in here. So let's do some intros. Keith, can you kick us off?
Yeah, thanks for having me on the podcast, Daniel. My name is Keith Size, and I'm with the California Walnut Board. I've been in the food industry for the last 25 years, about the last 7 years with the Walnut Board, helping them kind of launch their innovation program for food and beverage manufacturers.
All right, Kartik, over to you. Can you give us an intro, please?
Yeah, thanks for having us, Daniel. My name is Kartik Das. I'm the snack maker here at Doosra. What we do is we make modern takes on very classic Indian snack mixes. So we combine things, Indian ingredients like chickpea puffs and spices that are unique to India with little sweet indulgences. And, with the help of the wonderful folks, the California Walnut Board, we've got nut elements in there. And our newest snack mix has California walnuts in there.
All right. I love it. And so, I really like doing podcasts like this episode because I think a lot of people out there wonder, like, what actually do these commodity boards do that are out there that I always see at the trade shows? What can they actually do for me? And so, like, here we have a real life example that I think will be pretty interesting to people. So, Keith, maybe if you could start us off, can you just first of all give us the Walnuts 101? Because we did a webinar with you guys recently, and there's so much there.
Yeah, and I was like you. I did not know what all these commodity boards did either whenever I went to trade shows till I started working with one. So yeah, in essence, a commodity board is, set up to kind of represent an industry. In this case, the walnut industry in California make up of about 3,700 growers, 70 handlers. And we represent them because most of them are multi-generational farmers that may not have the marketing resources, may not have the marketing budgets to get out there. So that's kind of in essence what we do. In terms of Walnuts 101, I'll try to keep this short because I could, as I could talk your ear off for about 3 hours on walnuts. It's a great time to be in walnuts right now because I feel we're finally breaking out of the baking aisle. It's been something, here in the US, we've always been considered a baking nut. You put them in brownies, you buy shell walnuts during the holiday season and crack them. You put them in cookies, things like that. And in the last couple of years, due to a lot of the functionality of it, a lot of the innovation, as well as just people's changing preferences, especially people looking for more healthy products that still taste good, we're starting to see walnuts be really used everywhere. So it's been kind of fun in my role.
All right. So we've got all of the people growing walnuts out there in California. And so then at some point they formed this board because they don't all want to be doing their own individual marketing. They want to do growing, which they're good at, right? And so then they all kind of come together, and then thus we have California Walnut Board that does look to promote walnuts and the kind of walnuts that they're growing and help a lot of us figure out what else they could be used in and how we can meet consumer demand with interesting walnut innovations. Is that right?
Yeah, and that's really the best part of my job and why I love it so much is we don't grow walnuts. The board doesn't grow walnuts. I can't physically sell you a walnut. If you came to me and said, I want to buy your walnuts, Keith, I'd go, great, buy them from somebody in California. So our kind of goal is purely educational, which, you know, somebody who started their career as a journalist like me writing in the food industry, it's something I really thrive at and love doing, because that's kind of first and foremost is education. We're here to educate the food industry, consumers, restaurants, things like that about walnuts. I just work on the food and beverage brand side, which is my true joy. You know, I don't think I'd be as good at this job if I had to deal with consumer marketing and PR and things like that. So yeah, we kind of are here to promote, but really it's more about education in our part.
Okay, got it. So, you know, with education and what else is there also? Like what are the benefits for brands of working with a commodity board like California Walnut Board? What's all the stuff that you can do to make Kartik's life easier and all the other brands that you guys get to support?
Yeah, and that's kind of exciting thing and an evolving thing too, because in general it was, you know, more about the education and raising awareness. So get people to think about walnuts. Walnuts are kind of uniquely positioned because they've been underused by the food and beverage industry for a long time. Like I said earlier, just kind of cordoned off to be something you put in cookies or sweet goods or things like that. So, you know, whenever I first started, our main goal was the promotion, raising awareness part. We've since evolved the program to focus more on, okay, how do we work directly with brands? How do we support brands? And, you know, we're kind of limited on one hand because in the past all of our research has been mainly done on harvest, things like that, post harvest, but we're starting to kind of grow our capabilities and really focus a lot of those efforts now on, okay, you know, in the base level, kind of how we worked with Kartik and Doosra was how do we connect the pieces. You know, it started with education. He heard us talk at a conference about walnuts, tasted some of the walnuts we sampled, some of the innovative skinless walnuts that we sampled. And then, you know, we were able to connect the pieces between getting him samples, working back and forth to make sure he had what he need so he could do what he does best, which is creating tasty foods. So in some instances, it's connecting people, connecting sellers to a food brand. It's a lot of sampling, a lot of providing those samples. And then in other instances, we do everything as far as prototyping with companies who need more R&D source to where we'll work with our, you know, culinary experts to actually develop formulas.
So you have culinary experts in your network and you can tap them when somebody like Kartik is like, hey, this is what I would like to do. You know, we could use some help with it. You might go as far as to try to help the product along to get to the point where then obviously they're really ordering a lot of walnuts from people who you guys support.
Yeah, definitely. And in our case, we're glad Kartik is already an expert at crafting something really flavorful. So we didn't have to do any prototyping. It was mainly just bringing the walnut to his attention and then help facilitating that relationship with the seller and make sure he had plenty of samples, make sure he could do his benchtop testing before he even decided to move forward.
And so how do you actually decide which of the California walnut producers to connect with Kartik? I know there are so many different kinds of walnuts out there. The colors are different. The, you know, taste can be really different, just so much different stuff. So how would, yeah. And obviously you are supporting a wide variety of farmers all over California. So yeah, who gets to be the lucky one for Kartik?
Well, we've got a big list, and then based on the needs, which in Kartik's case, which he can talk a little bit about, his needs were very unique. So it kind of narrowed it down to one or two, and then whenever it comes to volume, kind of narrowed it down to one. Now I think there'll be more coming online with kind of the unique product that he has. But yeah, for this one, it was pretty narrow list because not many could provide him with what he was looking for.
Well, that is just a great setup. I think now everybody is like, what's behind this curtain? Kartik, can you tag in here and just tell us all about your brand? And while you do that, I've got my lovely sample here. So we've got Doosra snack mix. It's Indian snack mix. And the flavor that I've got here, it says spiced chickpea puffs, walnut and dark chocolate is the flavor that I've got here. And I'm going to shake my bag around a little bit just so you can hear. This stuff is awesome. And, I had heard about this at Fancy Food. I think you were near our section. And so a lot of people were coming by like, do you know about Doosra? Oh, this brand is nuts. And literally, I guess. And, so as I'm pouring some of the product out here into my hand and I look, and the first thing is that there's just a lot of different stuff going on in here, right? There are a lot of different shapes and colors and textures. And then when you actually like take a handful of this snack mix in your mouth and start chewing, you're on a journey, and there are going to be a lot of twists and turns and different roads and different experiences. And you just kind of want to tell people about it because it is sweet. It is spicy. It is, and the textures, because there's some that's like smooth and some that has like a gentle texture. There's some that's crunchy, a lot of crunchiness, and then a lot of gooiness also from the chocolate. So, buckle up, everybody. You're about to go on quite a ride when you have just even a little handful of Doosra. So I'm going to go on that journey and pass over to Kartik to actually tell us properly about himself and his brand.
Well, thank you, Daniel. I mean, I know you've been in CPG for a while, but you basically did my whole sales pitch for me. So we'll talk offline about how we can keep working together. But as you mentioned, so when you said journey, that's really what I wanted to take people on. I'm wearing our little hat here. We've got our logo with our little guy in our rickshaw. The idea is we wanted to take you on a flavor journey through a part of Indian food culture that most people don't know about, right? We've got simmer sauces, we've got chai, we've got spices. But if you walk into any house in the subcontinent, that's Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, anywhere in South Asia, they're going to welcome you with a cup of chai. And they're going to give you a crunchy, salty, savory snack to go with it. I like to say chai is Batman. It's having his moment. Everyone knows about it. And I'd like to bring Robin, which is the snacks, to the party. So I was born in India. I grew up in Singapore. I came here for school and I stayed. And I worked in corporate America for a while. But I grew up eating snacks like this. It's something that you share with your family at 4:00 when everyone takes a break for the day. You pour some chai, you sit around, you have conversation. So it's something that should bring people together. It's not the hero, but it facilitates so much. And here when I moved to the US, I saw them occasionally in Indian specialty stores. If you walk into an Indian store, you will see 2 aisles of snacks. But walk into any mainstream American grocery store, and you don't see a single Indian snack on shelf. And so that was the place I wanted to bring to the fore. I like to say we're not solving problems, we're just trying to spread a little joy. And that's what our snacks are about. You talked about textural contrast, right? We want the crisp and the spiciness from those chickpea puffs. We want the crumbliness that we've got from these incredible walnuts that don't have that bitterness of the skin, but they're meaty, they're textural. And then you hit the chocolate that's smooth, that's sweet, and the dark chocolate case still smoky. And then it brings those spices back, right? You keep going in every bite's a different adventure. And that's what I wanted to do. I just wanted to bring people and show that Indian food's a lot more than what you just normally see in Indian restaurants. And there's so much more of our food cultures. That's how we came up with the brand. And I'm glad you got to go on that venture. Usually when we sample it, we tell people to take a shot, right? And it's the exact same ratio in that bag. And it'll change with every bite. And in the end, people are like, I don't know where I went, but I'm happy I got on the ride and went for it.
That's exactly what it's like. It's like you're sort of giving someone directions to a place that's kind of hard to find, or like telling them what their Burning Man experience is going to be like. And it's like this, but it's also like this. And then, by the way, you think you're done now? Oh, hello. Now all of a sudden your mouth is spicy and you're not sure why. It's all great. Like all of the experience is very nice, and just it's a beautiful symphony that happens with a lot of twists and turns, and I loved it. So can you also just tell me a little bit about when did you decide that you were going to be an entrepreneur in this space and decide to specifically do this kind of a product?
Absolutely. So I always knew I wanted to work for myself. Back in college, I ran a couple of businesses. I used to be in the army, but I realized I don't really have a good relationship with authority. I like to work for myself. And so at one point I just, I woke up on a birthday and I said, why am I not pursuing this? But I needed to understand what story I wanted to tell. So I actually quit a well-paying job. I went to culinary school through the pandemic. I learned to cook. I worked in a couple of restaurants. I came back here. I private chefed for a little bit. And people kept asking me what my food story was. And it kept coming back to these snacks. So I said, I feel confident enough at making something that tastes good, but I don't know if people are going to buy it. So we started out just saying, I'm going to do a farmer's market thing. I'm going to get some craft bags, put a label on it, and see if people enjoy the flavors. And lo and behold, they did. They told me that my branding needed a fair amount of work. So naturally, it's a brown paper bag. And so that's when we decided, okay, there's something here, and let's give that a chance to succeed. So we designed our old packaging. We went out to a bunch of independent stores, and the feedback kept coming back saying, this is delicious. There's nothing else like it. And so that gave me the confidence to say, okay, I think we can start doing this. And growing up, I didn't have a lot of other Indian friends. All right. So the name Doosra means different. And that's how I always felt. I wasn't surrounded by other Indian folks. But the plus side of that is I was the one introducing Indian flavors to everybody else around me who had either misconstrued ideas of what it was or no clue about what it was. So now I get to do the same thing. I just get to do it in snack form.
I love it. One of the things that I really appreciate about Doosra is, you take a handful, and it is actually, to me, something like trail mix, but in a really different format where, trail mix, you have like pieces of chocolate in there. And if you're someone like me, you might even just like hunt through and pick out the little pieces of chocolate, but but also it's actually very light compared to trail mix. So trail mix, I think you would traditionally feel like it's like pretty filling. There's a lot of heaviness in there, but actually, it's like chickpea puffs and it's crunchy and there is chocolate in here, but actually when you're eating it, it doesn't feel like it's super heavy, which I think is why you guys both just saw me sit here and pig out on it for a while you were talking. Like I'm like having a bunch of handfuls. I'm like, this is like very delicious and flavorful, but also, I mean, I really feel like I could just pour this whole bag in my mouth right now and that would be fine.
So the name Doosra actually also means second because we know one bite's never really going to be enough and you're situated for it.
How do you say ninth? Because that's what that's what I'm on right now. I'm setting a record. Cool. And I see the pairs well with chai and yogurt and cocktails and ice cream. And if you just add pizza on there, then that's everything I like to eat and burgers. So we're good to go.
I'm pretty sure we can make that happen for you. I mean, we can talk to the folks making chickpea pizzas. We'll put this on there. We'll put a little chocolate. We'll be good to go.
All right. I love it. This is super, super cool. I hope everybody checks them out. So we do a lot of founder interviews on here, but specifically with this episode, the thing that I really wanted to do was also just really help people understand what it's like when you work with a commodity board, because obviously they have all these resources that are basically free for you guys to have access to, which is a really cool thing for somebody who especially hasn't been down this full journey before and doesn't even know a lot of the stuff that they don't know. So can you tell me a little bit about how did you actually get connected with the California Walnut Board? What made you want to work with Walnuts, for example, that they obviously are very happy to help you with? Tell me a story.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the important thing with work with anyone, especially with the Walnut Board, is you've got to be okay with knowing what you don't know, right? So we launched with another SKU. It's a peanut and white chocolate version of this mixture with the same puffs. And after a lot of conversation with our customers, there were so many folks who wanted something that was peanut free and was vegan, that was dairy free. And so we knew we were going to go down a dark chocolate route. And so the idea was we wanted to find something that gave the mixture texture in the same way. It gave it that crumbliness, and I wanted a bit of that dairy feel because you're losing the dairy with that vegan dark chocolate. And so initially I was trying to figure out, okay, what do I include in there? And like Keith mentioned, we met at a trade show where they were doing a presentation of how walnuts could be utilized. And as someone with a culinary background, I was like, okay, I understand walnuts. This should be pretty straightforward. But they laid out, I think, almost 7 to 10 different samples of different ways in which walnuts were used. You've got the whole, you've got the regular walnut, a roasted walnut. There were ways to use walnuts in meat alternative products, in frozen products, in savory applications. But there was this one thing that looked like exactly what you said. It's a naked walnut. I was like, oh, I've never seen it without skins, because usually when you think of walnuts, you think of the bitterness and the astringency that the skins have, a little bit of that flakiness when they tend to move around and fall apart. So I hadn't even considered walnut as an option. But when we tasted it, it had that crumbliness, it had the texture, it had the creaminess of almost like a walnut butter, because, those raw skinless walnuts taste like they could easily become something that's a dairy alternative. And so immediately I was talking to Chef Robert, who was presenting along with Keith, and we talked about, okay, how would this be utilized? What is the shelf life of it? How does it work with other elements? How do I need to store it from a if we're shipping it to a distributor? Like, how do I think about those things? And so we went back and forth, and then I went away from that conference. We set up time with Keith and Deirdre, and we talked about, okay, what would it be like to work with walnuts as a product in our snack mix? I have no idea who to contact. I've got no idea how to source this. I have no idea from a costing perspective. And so we went back and forth, and all I did was tell them what I was hoping to get out of this product, what I wanted it to feel like from a texture standpoint, how I wanted it to work from a costing standpoint. And they said, okay, I think we can work with this. They went away, and then I think it was like a week and a half later, they said, we've got something for you that could make sense. Shall we chat? We spoke, and they said, we have these skinless walnuts. We found a grower in California that can do that. And we'd be happy to support you as you figure out this bench testing by sending you some samples, right? And for me, I wanted to make sure that the customers who are asking for these products got a sense of how to try it and taste it and validate it before we went to market. So we spoke with them. They sent over some samples from a grower out there in California, and I just sampled it at events I was doing. I was like, hey, this is a product that's coming out that we're working on, and we'd love to get your honest feedback on it. And the feedback was, wow, there's no dairy in here. How is there no dairy in here? Because the walnuts are skinless and there's a fatty texture to them, and they crumble in the same way. People are like, this works really well. It's a different taste. So then we went back to Rob and said, I think we have something. What are the next steps now? And so from that point, they said, okay, great. Let's connect you directly with the grower, because now we've done our job in creating this collaboration, and now you can work with them. They put us directly in touch, and now we've placed our second order I think a couple of weeks ago. And it's been wonderful to work with them. It's been really, really simple. And then on top of that, we met, I've been speaking to Deirdre, who's been working with them, and we met at Fancy Food. She talked about the product to a bunch of folks. We got to go on a little road trip. Well, this bag got to go on a little road trip to Chicago because we were in their IFT case when they were talking to a range of other folks. And so as a brand, not only has the Walnut Board supported us in creating a product or finding an avenue to create a product, but then they're helping us down the road continue to talk about that product to folks who might never have found us. And so for that, we're very grateful.
Isn't it amazing how serendipitous this world is when you're like, because I was at that conference too at Nosh, right? And they were doing the presentation, and I stopped in on it mainly because I like the look of the googly eyes on the walnut. That was very appealing to me. I stopped in. But isn't you never could predict that though. You're there and you're just kind of like there with an open mind. And then you find out about walnuts and meet them. And then they just happen to be these very deep walnut experts who then can go out and just find you the perfect thing that you're looking for. It's just like, man, it's a very beautiful world sometimes when you're just working on stuff like that and meet the right people who really are there to help you, and everything just kind of comes together.
Exactly. But I think that's what you and so many of these folks have done. I think so many founders or product developers have a sense of what they want to create, right? But there's a difference between being a chef and a food scientist. So definitely between being someone who has created something culturally and then understanding how to navigate in a different environment or a different culture with ingredients that could work just as well. So I think just putting yourself out there and trying new things could lead to these wonderful serendipitous moments.
And I really like your approach about actually testing the product with real consumers to get feedback. I think that it just almost makes too much sense, but I think most people don't do it or don't have the capability to do it. They're like, no, we're just like, that's what they want, and this is a good one, and now we're going to launch it, and everyone's going to like it, without actually having the chance to get that feedback cycle. And I also, I was talking about the flavor before. I mentioned like a symphony. It's interesting to just think about, you with your background, you have a lot of skills that a lot of founders may not come with. They may come with passion, but they may not have this culinary background where I think for you, it's interesting because I feel like, you're not just like a musician who understands one component, like one of the ingredients in the snack mix. You're actually the conductor. And like, you're not just evaluating whether you should have a product with walnuts in it, but also like what are the particular properties and taste characteristics of that actual walnut that are then going to work with the overall orchestra to create the right experience when it's all put together for the consumer, which is just very impressive to me. It's like, it's just hard for myself to imagine developing that skill set where I could just understand the whole composition of the things, thus what elements I would be looking for.
I appreciate that, Daniel. But when I went into this, when I first was thinking about this SKU, walnuts weren't on my radar. I had identified something else to go in there already, and I had already started going down that route. Right? I was like, okay, we're gonna do this because it has dairy. It's got that element to it, and we pivoted completely because we found something that worked better.
And I also like that it's a very complementary SKU, right? Because I think a lot of times people are just like, well, we'll just launch this next thing. But then, it can cannibalize or it might not be the right thing. But, you listen to your consumers and you found something that will really help a lot of them that may not be able to go for the first one if they have a peanut allergy or a dairy allergy or something like that, or just a preference. So I think that's very cool. Keith, you're listening to all of this. Is this a very common story? Like, yeah, it does work like this and people find us and then they're very excited in this way, or
It's never a common story because every brand we work with is different. In this instance, I think how you describing Kartik as a conductor is perfect. After that session, I remember talking with our chef in residence, at the conference, and there was kind of a vision going where he wanted to go, and the whole dairy thing was really great for us to hear because that's something that we're really starting to make a lot of progress on, is just using walnut cream as a plant-based dairy alternative in a whole lot of products. So the fact that he saw that vision and knowing that it wasn't going to be just a traditional trail mix, nothing wrong with a traditional snack or anything like that, but we love that this was something that we could align in a completely unique product, because as far as we know, there's no other snack product on the marketplace with skinless walnuts. This is a very first. So this is not something you're going to go into any 7-Eleven and grab and find this. I mean, you have to go to Doosra to find this product, and I think it's fantastic because from our standpoint, as whenever you taste it, it's pretty unbelievable. So, we're big believers in it ourselves here. So it's easy for us to go, okay, this is something that we want to fully support because it's such a wonderful, wonderful product and it's unique, which is always great for the market.
I think if I could jump in there, Daniel, I think the real benefit of working with someone like Keith and the Walnut Board is that they're representing two sides of the equation, right? They want to help the primary constituent are the growers, right? And trying to figure out how to take this incredible product. And then you've got the brand coming in with no idea of what they want. And their real superpower is finding ways to mix it, because there might be innovation that the walnut folks have come up with that they're not advertising yet, right? But I'm just giving them a problem to solve. And they're saying we can solve it with walnuts. I think that's really the value of working with the board.
that is cool. And in the webinar that we did the other day, it was funny because one of the people attending the webinar from our community was like, hey, my dad actually invented the whole method for doing skinless walnuts. So it was very funny that she was in there. Also quite serendipitous, I would say. That was Sue. And she sells those skinless walnuts just by themselves, not in anything. But very, very cool to have her there. Also, growing in the Central Valley in California. Also, Keith, I'm hearing about nuts all the time right now. It definitely something that's trending. Like for sure, a lot of different kinds of nuts, and people I think associating different benefits with them. What is going on in the world of nuts right now, and specifically walnuts? How come people are interested in looking at them for a variety of different reasons? But what makes consumers likely to pick up a product right now that has walnuts?
Yeah, I think it's a couple different things. First off, especially if you're talking about a food product, it's a lot of the times it's the texture. Walnuts have a really unique texture. They're not too hard. They're not too soft. They're crispy. They're crunchy, but then they're not, they're also chewy. So it's a really dynamic kind of texture. So that is kind of starting point for a lot of people whenever they want to use walnuts is we need that texture, whether it's in a food bar, whether it's, in a, vegan bolognese sauce where you're using walnuts as kind of that meat replacement. So, we're seeing a lot of people kind of going to texture, but then we're also seeing just as many people looking at it as a whole food natural ingredient. That's going to provide that texture, but it's also going to provide nutrition benefits, whether we're talking about the omega-3 fatty acids, the cognitive research that's coming out on the cognitive benefits of walnuts. So it's kind of the whole package. You've got this one ingredient that can provide flavor, texture, and health benefits, and people are familiar with it. So it's that familiarity also, I think, is why, nuts in general are becoming more popular in packaged foods, and walnuts specifically is because people kind of trust, they trust that I know what I'm getting, but it can also be kind of new to me. So I think all those things kind of mixed together is really kind of boosting walnuts right now in the food and beverage industry.
That's awesome. And I also, when we did the webinar, I just was really interested to see the variety of like tastes that you get, and especially the top pairings that you see with walnuts also. And I know there was some pretty interesting stuff in there, like dark chocolate, because I think a lot of pairings can make sweet products taste more savory. And so, yeah, dark chocolate, vanilla, sesame cayenne, sea salt caramel, coffee, candied orange, cinnamon, chai spice, all of that stuff with walnuts being really frequent pairings was super interesting. And I also I was really interested just to see the diversity within walnuts, because I don't know that much about walnuts coming into this, and I'm like there are walnuts, right? But actually, no, you are in the world of walnuts now, and now you're on a journey, because there are you have this very cool chart that's showing all of the different sizes and colors of walnuts. And I mean, this is like more complex than, wine and like growing grapes and stuff. And like the whole flavor wheel experience that you guys have that just shows all of the different aroma profiles of walnuts and, textures and tastes and all of that stuff. Can you tell everyone a little bit about that?
Yeah, and it's one of the first things whenever we did the flavor wheel, that was kind of recently as we started kind of bolstering our culinary expertise in-house and go down this route of how do we work with food brands to best support them. And it was funny, we would even talk to walnut growers themselves, growers that have been around walnuts their whole life. And you ask them, what does a walnut taste like? And they have to sit and think about it. And they don't, it's hard to describe. And so we were like, well, we need a flavor wheel. And once we sat down and developed the flavor wheel, it was something where you realize, I've always known it's a complex flavor, the mixture of the fatty acids, the oils in the meat, as well as kind of the tannins and the pellicle and things like that. It really creates this unique, complex flavor profile. But to sit down and think about it in terms of not only how it pairs, but also how the piece size even impacts that flavor. So you can buy walnuts, everything from ground walnuts that are used as like a pie crust or an ice cream, all the way up to, a full half. And that's even going to taste different. If you use small pieces in something, it's going to have a bit of a different taste. Then we've got varietals, we've got colors, everything like that. So it's great from a standpoint of, sure, you can just order walnuts. And you can just put walnuts in a product and it'll be great. But, you can also, if you really want to tailor each bite that somebody's going to be tasting, you can get a certain piece size to where, okay, if I'm making a bar, I want every single bite to have a walnut in it, not every other bite. So you can do those kinds of things. So there's a whole world out there of ways we can sort of use complementary flavors as well as piece size and even color to kind of deliver somebody the exact flavor profile they're looking for.
And it's pretty interesting to see just how many products out there are using walnuts in different ways. I know during our webinar, we had so many people chiming in the chat with stuff that I was not expecting. There were like walnut meatballs, and I know there's like, plant-based bolognese pasta sauce using walnuts, and the Amy's has a walnut and quinoa veggie burger, I think, and like, walnut butter, and like obviously the milked walnuts that you get from, Elmhurst has like a walnut latte. I mean, I know you, Keith, you've probably seen a lot of stuff out there.
And it's even, we export a lot of walnuts, worldwide. And so, we work with partners and countries all over the world, and to see some of the ways they use walnuts in, say, Japan or India, or the Middle East, or Europe, it's completely different to how we use walnuts. So we see, especially in a lot of plant-based dishes, even a lot of things like fish stews, you'll see walnuts in them, all packaged products. So it's one of the benefits I have is I get to see all these products from all over the world that have walnuts in them, and it really helps us kind of bring new ideas and potentially new innovative formats to, food brands here in the US.
So, Keith, because obviously Kartik has been able to take advantage of a lot of stuff that you guys have for, a commodity board like you guys. Is there other stuff that you feel like people don't take as much advantage of that you have, that you wish they would, that you're like really eager to offer to them, that, if anybody out there is listening, they should know that this is a service they can ask you guys for?
I say listen to Kartik, just learn. That's the big thing. We offer to any food brand, the webinar we did, with you, Daniel, earlier this week, we offer that to any food brand where we will, sit down with them and give them a hour-long 101 education on walnuts. And I think that's the biggest thing that most people miss is they think they know walnuts, or even if they are very familiar with walnuts, they don't look at that as an opportunity where, well, maybe this will give me an idea that may not work now, but maybe 2 years down the road, 3 years down the road. And it's a free service that we offer. And, we always come whenever we work specifically with food brands is we do the Walnuts 101, yes, but then we always pitch 5 ideas. So we look at their product line and we go, here are 5 ideas for new products. Here's exactly how we would do it. Here's why it would work from a marketing standpoint. And sometimes it does surprise me that people won't take advantage of that kind of free education and really just, okay, let me learn about something that I may not think I need, but who knows, maybe I do need.
I feel like we're about to launch a TV show that's called So You Think You Know Walnuts. And it's a quiz show, and you're the host, and Kartik will be the plant, and he'll be on there and just, I don't know, dropping all sorts of walnut knowledge. Kartik, when you were at Fancy Foods and when you're like starting to talk to more and more buyers, do they ask you questions about the specific ingredients that way? Like, are they just really focused on the overall product and composition? Or are they like, you used walnuts here? Like, yeah, that's like makes sense because our consumers are looking for more stuff that has walnuts. Or does it come down to that ingredient level? Or is it mainly just they're interested in the overall product concept, the Indian snack mix, all the properties and flavors?
I think it's varied. I think you've got folks who are, first looking at, okay, what is the category, right? And so in this case, it's salty snack, it's got Indian flavors. But then when they look a level down, the same way folks are looking for a gluten-free product, right, which ours happens to be, they're looking for, okay, we've got a lot of snack mixes in our set, but they're all peanut-based, right? And so we've got nothing for folks who have a peanut allergy, right? So, okay, it looks like you're using something that's a little more allergen-friendly in that space, and then there's the question. Or the flip side is folks are asking, okay, are you using local ingredients? And now we get to say, yeah, our walnuts are right here from California. And so that also adds value for someone saying, okay, this is a locally made product, right? And so there are different angles in which different consumers or different buyers are looking at the product. And then from a media perspective, we want to support a lot of homegrown businesses. And so now by working with the California Walnut Board, you're like, okay, there's a decent chunk of my product now that's locally made and locally sourced. As we know, for more and more folks are looking to source from local farms, to source from local growers. And this is a great way for you to align with that. I mean, I'll be completely honest, that wasn't the intention, but when you find a great product and you didn't get the additional benefits of that, it's quite serendipitous for someone who's trying to formulate something.
Yeah. It's so interesting to think about. And I guess, I mean, anytime I talk to one of our ingredient providers, they would tell me so much about the ingredient that actually really helped me talk to buyers specifically, and even thinking about product messaging, but just to really know the benefits and like sustainability stuff, like all about the ingredient, then it gave me so much confidence and education, information to talk to buyers in a very elevated way, I would say. Did you find that also?
Yeah, it's helpful, right? Because then if folks are asking, because we always launch the flavor first, right? And after the flavor, they're like, okay, what else separates you? It's like, okay, so the product, not only is it allergen friendly, walnuts have so many health benefits, right? I'll be the first to say we're not a health forward snack. I mean, we're better for you. But the idea is that now we have different ways to talk to different folks about how this fits into their lives, right? Just even hearing you and Keith go back, I was like, why is no one grinding walnuts and using that in a vodka sauce instead of dairy, right? Because that could be a way for you to create that creamy nature in a pasta sauce. But as far as I know, I don't know anyone do that, right? But that seems like a pretty simple application for something that's grown right here.
Keith, you got to hire Kartik for the Walnut Board now.
Oh, wait, I mean, the envelopes are coming his way, you know.
Let's go.
We need 5 ideas, Kartik, for every single brand. Let's go. Well, I just think that's so interesting, and I love the partnership here. And just Kartik, it seems like you have a really great approach to being open to grow this brand, which, you know, like Indian snack mix, you might expect like, oh, it's just going to be, you know, a very specific kind of mix that is very traditional. But it seems like you're open to evolving this and you considering different kinds of things to really deliver the consumer experience. And it feels very true to, you know, how it's marketed, and the branding is fun, and just the experience is really awesome. And I feel like reflects your approach to entrepreneurship, like the actual taste reflects all of that.
Yeah, I mean, Daniel, I mean, I'm like you, right? At the start, I was fishing after chocolate, right? I'm a sweet tooth at heart, but you want to take people on, you want to give people something they've not had before, and at the end of the day, no matter how better for you the product is, what the macros are, if it doesn't taste good, it doesn't really matter, right? And so the lane that we're going is we just want to make you smile, and if that works, great, and if not, thank you for giving us a try.
What do you think the plan is going to be to get a lot of people to try this? Because I'm pretty sure when they try it, they will love it. But, you know, yeah, who's that target consumer do you think to start? And yeah, how are you going to really spread word about this product to everybody?
Yeah, I think the methodology we're taking is very much slow, steady. We're here for a while. So we know that introducing a product with a differentiated flavor, and then with this SKU, combining things that even in Indian cuisine you wouldn't see together, right? So bundi and peanuts, you can see that elsewhere, but you'll almost never see a walnut with these chickpea puffs. So what we do is we do plenty of events where we are sampling. I almost have a policy when we sell in person, I refuse to let someone buy the product until they try it, because I would much rather you have an understanding of what this product is here and not spend your money if you don't like it. But then if you do, great. I know I never have to talk to you again. You will be talking about this to everybody else, right? So we do a lot of events. We do a lot of conventions, and, you know, things like wine and whiskey festival, where you don't expect to see an Indian snack mix, but where they're talking about how walnuts and this vegan dark chocolate, which you would normally see in a brownie, come together when you're pouring a glass of wine or hosting with a beer, right? You don't think of walnut as a beer snack as much. But now here we have an opportunity to do that. And so that's what we're doing. We're just sampling it at every single point we can. And so we're not in a lot of large retail. We're doing a lot of independent stuff. But we will send single shot samples to stores so they can just put it out and people can have that experience. So we do.
That's because you know if you do that, they're going to want it. I would. I was just sitting here eating it, thinking like, man, this would go great at a like Total Wine and More. Have this with beer. This is a much better experience than what they're usually gonna put in front of you at the bar, right? And it's nice and salty, and I might have to arrange for that after this podcast.
We can make it happen.
All right, so as we start wrapping up here, Kartik, I actually am curious though, just on that retail front. Basically, it seems like you guys are slow and steady. Like you're going to start evaluating these opportunities as they come and make the right decisions for your brand, not too over eager or anything to immediately land national accounts or anything. Or how are you thinking about it?
Yeah, we've had interest from a range of regional and national retailers, but we've said no because we know we're not going to be able to support them in the way they need to. So we're trying to build a business where we're building a little food service business, right? We're working with a few bars that have this on their bar menu as a bar snack. We're working with some corporate offices to have us in their snack dispensers, right? If you walk in next to the granola, if you have Doosra, you can have as much as you like. Trying to reduce the friction to that initial trial, and then finding different ways for us to be able to, maybe in 2026, the second half of that, to support a regional launch, because now people know what it is. We have cash in hand, and we're confident enough that the flavor is bringing people back. And then we're focusing on the Northeast. We're based here out in New York, and so I'd love Keith, drop a whole bunch in wineries all over Napa. I think we'll get out there at some point, but for now we're staying in the Northeast.
Sounds like a great idea to me as well.
That sounds like a service that I'm sure Keith would love to
Daniel may
personally
join us
do.
on that trip as well.
Yes, if we have to go to every winery, then we'll do it. All right, boys trip. Let's go. I love that approach, Kartik. It almost sounds too reasonable. Like, yes, isn't that what everyone should do? Like, grow the business responsibly based off creating awareness and demand in a nice, thoughtful way before just going and blowing all your cash on big national launches before anyone knows about it. So it sounds like you're being quite thoughtful about your approach. Keith, just as we're finishing up here, what else do you think people should know about commodity boards in general, and maybe how you guys compare with other commodity boards out there, or just people should really know about all of them in general? Anything to kind of leave us with?
Yeah, I think the big thing is just take advantage of the resources they all offer. I think we push things way more on the food innovation side, just because I feel we're in a unique position with Walnuts to where there's not this massive backlog of knowledge of how to incorporate it into a packaged food and some ideas and things like that. So I think we're kind of in an advantageous position. And one of the reasons why we love working with startups and founders is that we're in a position to really position it as something unique and innovative. So I would say the big takeaway is to use the resources and then, in our instance, really capitalize on the educational component, because, it's something that who doesn't want to know more about, something going on in the food industry with an ingredient. And it's a free resource, so it may lead to your next SKU. So take advantage of it.
Daniel, can I just say one thing there? I think a lot of times in this industry, you're working with so many different folks who are trying to who have a vested interest in protecting their bottom line, and they're selling a service, they're selling something where they, at the end of the day, are, making money from it. And I think it's hard because there's often tension as to who is benefiting and who is really, who's got your best interest at heart. And I think at the end of the day, you want to work with people you enjoy working with. And, I've been very fortunate to work with the team over there. And not only are they just nice people, but there's no vested interest on that side. And I think just going into that conversation with that very clear mindset on both sides just makes that conversation a lot easier to happen. I know Keith won't give himself credit for that, but, his team has been fantastic in making me feel at ease that they're not trying to sell me something.
We can't. That's the best part of the job. We can't. That's why I love it.
That's amazing. Well, Kartik, really big congrats on all the early success. So, yeah, I just kept hearing about you guys at Fancy Food. So I hope that was a great show for you all. And Keith, thank you so much for just sharing all this info. I really like for everyone to kind of live through this example just to understand some of the resources that are out there, because this is a very hard industry to be successful in. But, when you look at the different pockets, you find a lot of people out there who are, willing to help. And obviously, Keith, you guys have a mission, which is to support the California walnut growers out there. And this is how you do it. But I think, your model is a lot like ours, which is you're trying to provide a lot of value. And that's the way to help a lot of people as well, through education, through opportunities. So I love to see it. And I love to see this beautiful partnership as well. And everybody, if you haven't had Doosra, that I'm not messing around here. You got to try it. Go to the website, buy it, maybe rate it on Amazon also for bonus points. That's how we do it. So great. Thank you both so much for joining us here today. And I hope everybody enjoyed this as much as I did.
Thank you, Keith. Thank you, Daniel. Appreciate it.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to our podcast. If you loved it, I would so appreciate it if you could leave us a review. You could do it right now. If you're in Apple Podcasts, you can scroll to the bottom of our Startup CPG podcast page and click on Write a Review. Leave your company name in there. I will try to read it out. If you're in Spotify, you can click on About and then the star rating icon. If you are a service provider that would like to appear on the Startup CPG podcast, you can email us at partnerships@startupcpg.com. Lastly, if you found yourself grooving along to the music, it is my band. You can visit our website and listen to more. It is superfantastics.com. Thank you, everybody. See you next time.